Maxwell describes leadership is your ability to influence, nothing more, nothing less. And in order to be that influencer or to be that person who can help people take action, and that's what we do as real estate agents, is we help lead people through the process of buying and selling property. The most difficult thing to do is to find a motivated buyer and seller. Well, what I'm going to talk about here today is I'm going to touch on the process of how you find those sellers and buyers, but specifically sellers right now in this market, how you become the market expert. And what I mean by being the market expert is, you know, this market inside out and out, and you can show it not just by saying we're at all-time low inventories, but actually show the numbers that show the reason and the urgency of why they need to take action now. The sellers need to take action now, because that's the biggest challenge we have. And a lot of that is our fault as agents. And when I say it's our belief, it's our confidence that we know now is the best time to sell. So the topic of this conversation is, why is now the best time to sell? And how are we going to help others identify that for themselves, now is the best time if they're on the fence. They're thinking, well, maybe we should wait a few months till the interest rates come down because these rates are too high. And I'm just going to hit, instead of asking questions, because I got about 30 minutes in total to cover a topic that could easily be broken down into a couple of days seminar. There's so much information, but what I want to share with you are nuggets of information that I've learned from other various leaders, mentors, who've taught me things that I implement in my business, that help me take listings down, that help me become more effective in my listing presentation, so that when I show up, I'm prepared. I know how to present. I know what the seller is looking for because I follow this process. Okay. So in getting started, okay, the very first question, if you're writing this down and you're taking notes, why is now the best time to sell? So the hesitation that many people have is based on the interest rates. There's many sellers that we see right now that have homes that are in 2.5% to 3.5% rates. And they say they're never going to sell their home. Why would they ever give up that rate? Well, the thing that's happened in the market, and Mike Ferry talked about this just a few weeks ago at the management retreat, is that buyers now have seen that rates have stabilized. So that's good for the market. So Mike Ferry actually predicts that coming up in June, July, and August, that you're going to see the busiest months, because we didn't have a January, February, March, not a normal January, February, March. So just even seasonally speaking, the hot part of the market is coming to where we're at today. Okay. And there's proof of this just in Caravan today, in Cameroon on Thursday. There were about 9 properties that were on Broker Caravan. And to put that in perspective, last week there were 2. The week before that, there were 2 or 3. And that's what we've been seeing, about 2 or 3 on average every single week. That's all we've been seeing. And today we had almost 4 pages of properties to go check out. One particular agent had 4 new listings hit, just that one agent alone. Okay. So the inventory is starting to pick up. Sellers are starting to get off the fence, but many still have the challenge in this belief that now isn't the best time to sell. So it's our job to educate them. Well, first we have to prospect. We got to find them. So who do we call? We're going to call our SOY. The very first person you need to talk to is your sphere, especially if you've been doing this business for quite some time. You have past clients that bought 1.5 years, 2 years or more. Those are the ones you want to start with. You want to reach out to them. So if you do Caravan, that's, for me, that's a perfect day to follow up. If I see a property in a neighborhood of a past client and the home's going for $1,125,000, I'm going to call them up. So I'm hoping you're jotting these notes down, because it's not about what we talk about here today. It's what you can take from today and put into action. And if you start taking action now, and that's our goal, is that you focus towards listing and creating a schedule that is built around taking listings for the next 60 to 90 days, then you're going to set yourself up very nicely. Well, the challenge is the other agents and sellers are already figuring this out. We're already seeing the inventory pick up. So when we talk about reasons of why is now the best time to sell, you always got to have 2 categories. Why is now the best time to sell? And basically the reasons that they're going to give you, or their objections of why they think it's better to wait. And most of the time, the reasons why they want to wait is because they have what are called objections. There's objections and conditions, and you need to know the difference. A condition is an event that has to happen before they can sell. Okay. Now, if it's something, for example, my kid has to graduate high school before we are able to sell, so we cannot move before then, that's a condition. Okay. There may be still a creative way of being able to still take care of that and create a rent back situation, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit. But the other thing is An objection is typically an unanswered question that particular client has that you have to figure out what's going on in their head. So Ken Gretsch teaches a negotiation class. And one of the first things that Ken speaks about, that this professor speaks about, is you got to know what they know, when they know it, and what they don't know, right? And we have to discover those things. And we do everything through discovery. We do it by asking questions. So our presentation, our listing presentation, our listing conversation is set up with a process. So let's start with that process now, okay? So I identify somebody in my sphere. I'm going to call somebody up. I did it today. I went into a property, was listed for a little over $1 million in the neighborhood of a person who I sold a home, let's say 6 years ago. They probably bought it around 670 at that time. Well, this home's a little over $1 million. So I call that person up. Hey, just thinking about you. I'm actually in your neighborhood. Don't know if you saw this home show up on ABC Banana Court, but it's listed at $1,075,000. Just curious if you saw that. And it's been a while since we chatted. Let's talk and see how the family's doing, and give me a call when you get some time. Okay. So I left a message. I got a call back later that day. We're still trying to connect. But the whole point is, do this and continue to do it. If some client comes to your mind while you're driving, call that person. There's a reason why that person's coming to your mind. And there's no better way of doing it than when you're driving in their neighborhood and you're saying, hey, just thinking about you. Sorry, it's been a long time since we connected. Give me a call when you get a chance. Now, when we talk to our SOI, there's a very easy acronym to remember: FORD: family, occupation, recreation, and dreams. Okay. So now you want that conversation to break the ice is going to be, how's the family doing? How's work going? Right. I saw that you went on a trip to Disney World. How was that? That looked amazing. Yeah. Our family's planning on doing it. And dreams. Kids are going off to college. Congratulations. That's exciting. I'm sure it's pretty concerning. How are you handling that right now? How's it going? How's the selection of it going? That conversation starts. And then from there, you will be able to transition, not in every call, but in some conversations, they're curious, so how's the market going right now? And that's the magic question that you want to hear. You want to be able to speak intelligently about the market is white hot. It's actually insane that's what's happening. So what I have they're called sound bites or testimonials. Sound bites are really quick stories that you can give, and you have to be able to share experiences with your clients or friends or prospects or whoever you're speaking to so that they can relate, because the numbers do tell a story, but people will relate to these stories and these experiences, and it helps them better understand the process. Okay. So the example I'll share is, I just listed a home on 720 Lawnwood just a couple weeks ago. And what's crazy is, based on the timing, because my client followed my advice and they took advantage of the fact that there's less competition right now, and that buyers are now starting to make moves, right? There's a very high demand of buyers right now because the rates have been stabilized for about 90 days. Meaning that even though we're in the sixes, it's not moving up or moving down, and buyers are now like, okay, let's move forward. So now if you get a rate in the fives, your loan officer and agent can speak, wow, that rate's in the fives. You got to take action right now. Okay. I heard a loan officer just say this the other day. So that's really important to understand, that rates have stabilized. So now buyers are coming out of the woodwork. Now, the key is you need to get your home on the market before your neighbor does. And right now, I know, and I just pulled these quick stats, just in Camry alone, yesterday, we had, as I mentioned, 9 homes on Caravan where we were seeing 2 before. There are 51 active properties. So you need to know this about your market before you prospect, before you go to a presentation. You're going to set up, and I run what's called the Flex Market Summary Report. That helps me, but that's last month's stats. I need to know today what's active on the market. And there are 51 active properties, condos, detached homes, all of the market in Camry of 51 active, which is very low, right? Historically, even in the recent future, you'd see about 125 plus active properties. We're at 51. With that, there are 21 that are 55 and older, 36 that are single family dwellings. There's 10 condos, and there's 6 mobile homes. Okay. So there are only 36 detached homes that are on the market today. Now, do you see the advantage of listing your home today versus waiting until you fix these things or do these other things or wait for the rates, or wait to do this, can you see the advantage of why you would want to list your home today? And they're going to see it, okay? Because there's less competition. So before I show up, not only am I going to run the quick number stats about the particular city, anything around my price point, my price range, I'm going to check that out. And I typically write that in my journal. So for example, this listing that I went to a listing presentation a couple weeks ago was listed, it was going to be listed in the 800,000s. So I'm going to get a net sheet. A net sheet, I have to ask the question, okay, what's your payoff? Net sheet's going to show what they're going to walk away with after commissions, after their payoff, after all expenses are paid, what should they roughly walk away with? So that net sheet's going to be there. I'm also going to have my flex market summary report. On this report, between 8 and 900,000, there were 11 sold properties, 12 that went pending last month. There were, for actives, we have 9 actives and 4 new listings. Okay. So those are your stats there. So not everything that is active has been selling. And these numbers get demonstrated as you see 51 active properties, 18 went pending, 12 went sold last month. So that's about 30 properties that actually went pending or closed last month, but we have 51 actives. On the new listings, we have 11 new listings, okay? So 11 new properties came on the market. Well, we just had 9 in the last 7 days. So in the last 7 days, 9 hit, but there's only 11 new listings for the whole month. So just in that last week, we're seeing a pickup. And that's the crazy thing about this market is in 2 weeks, you can see some drastic changes in negotiations and the way you're positioning and marketing yourself. So you need somebody who is up to date that does this 24/7, that is all in the real estate business. And so what I also want you to write down as I'm speaking is what are the qualities a seller is looking for when they look to hire an agent? They're looking for confidence. They're looking for sincerity. They're looking for somebody who cares, who's empathetic, who actually listens to what my needs are and understands what I'm trying to accomplish. Okay. So this piece, I'm talking a lot about the preparation. I know that Jeff's done a great job talking about the listing presentation and jumping into the discovery portions. And if you go to any Ken or my classes, you're going to find out we spend a lot of time on discovery because discovery is everything. The more information you have, you are now the expert. And you do it by calling other agents and calling other colleagues. You do it by talking to the agents in your office. And that's why we do our weekly meetings and we share what these situations, what we're accomplishing. Okay. So that's why I'm sharing some of these stories here today. So the preparation is key. So the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to call every single property. There's not very many. There's like 3 or 4 that are competing around my price point, around the 8 to 900. So last week or 2 weeks ago, I called one agent who's a broker owner in the area. And I asked her, I said, hey, see your new listing. Just curious, give me a call when you get a chance. And she calls me back and leaves a voicemail for me and says, hey, we got 7 offers already in hand. It's only been on the market 4 days. It's listed at 850, under 1,400 square feet. So I get a story from that. Okay. I get a nice story that I can now share with the client. Then I call another one that is close to closing, listed at 850 on mobile, about 1,700 square feet. To me, looked like it was a little priced on the high side with only a 2% commission to the selling office. So there's certain stories or arguments or persuasive conversations that I'm going to have. One's called the commission story. I'm going to explain and be able to articulate why a seller, it's in their best interest to pay at least 2.5% commission or higher. And if they pay less, how that can hurt you. And I'll show examples. So I'll print out a property that's listed at 2% and show how they didn't go out as high or they sat on the market longer than a home that was listed at 3% commission. So, and I can discover that this is going to be an important piece of the conversation based on my pre-qual. Okay. So these are all important aspects and things that you have to understand as you're going through the process. Okay. So let's get back to step 1. So step 1 was the sphere call. I made the call. Let's just say I hypothetically set the appointment for Friday at 4 o'clock. So now on Thursday, I'm going to call that same seller and say, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, to make sure we make the most out of our time on Friday, I have a few questions for you. Do you have a few minutes? Great. Yes, I do. Well, one, are we still good for that time tomorrow? Yes, we are. That's awesome. So when we get together tomorrow, what do you hope to accomplish with that conversation? And I'll just ask an open-ended question like that. What are your goals for our meeting tomorrow? What do you hope to accomplish, right? You reached out to me in this situation. I reached out to them, but if they're calling me, the very first thing I'm going to ask them is, how can I help you? I want to put it on them already so that they start sharing and I start discovering. I listen, I repeat and affirm, I sum up what they're saying, right? I show them that I'm listening, I'm taking notes. They can tell listening to me that I'm taking notes, right? And I make sure that I'm hitting all the key things. But my goal on a pre-qual conversation is to discover certain key things that are going to help me tailor the presentation when I meet with them on Friday. And I'm going to discover as much as I can. Mike Ferry will say something like, do you plan to list your home with me when we get together on Friday at 4 o'clock? And I'll be the first to admit that I rarely ask that question, at least right out the gate. Okay. That's his very first question, because he wants to know right out the gate, do you plan to list your home with me? So for myself, I'm going to ask him something to the effect of, what are your expectations in the agent that you look to hire? So whether I get to do that on my pre-qual, which I try to do 90+% of the time, because I want to get as much information as I can. But there are times that I've been called and they've said, hey, can you just come check out my place in the next 20, 30 minutes? And the old me wouldn't do that. The new me, when I say the new me, the agent that has been well-versed in understanding this process will go there in a heartbeat, because I also know I want to get face-to-face with that prospect, whether buyer or seller, as quickly as possible. One of the rules and the key things you want to know is the first one to get face-to-face with any buyer wins, okay? That our stats show that 66% of the time, these agents will be the agent that helped that buyer purchase that home, 2/3 of the time, okay? With sellers, I can't say that the same stats, I don't know the exact stats of what it is, but for myself personally, I'd rather be the first person to speak with them. Some rather be the last. If I can and I don't get it on the first, I want to be the first and the last, because I want to set the tone. I want to set the bar high in terms of what that experience is going to be. And it's partially because I understand a process of what needs to happen in that conversation. Okay. So as we talk about the pre-qual being an important stat, other things that I'm going to hit on is, okay, what price do you plan to list your home at? Do you have a price in mind? How'd you come up with that number? Right. I'm going to ask them questions like, okay, well, I'd like to show you what you're going to walk away with. So what is your payoff? I need to know what the payoff is on the property. I'm going to ask them about timing. What kind of time frame do you have in mind? I'm going to ask them if they're purchasing a property or not, right? You're selling this home or potentially selling this property, looking to move somewhere else. Have you already started looking for your other property? Do you know what you qualify for that other purchase? If you know roughly what you're going to walk away with. And those are typically the things that we have to figure out. So the biggest challenge, and I'm trying to do it a little bit of twofold. I'm trying to walk us through the process of from beginning to end. And at the same time, also talk about one of the hardest things in taking a listing right now is a contingent seller, somebody who has a home to sell to purchase another property, and different ways of how we can overcome that. So discovery is big. I'm also a big believer of educating and empowering our client. And the more that we know, the more we can educate them. The more that we are confident in the marketplace and understanding the market, the more that we can educate our clients to make informed decisions that they're going to come back and say, thank God I know so-and-so. Thank goodness, you know, I was referred to you because you know this stuff inside and out. You know the market better than anybody else. So let's talk about the 4 pillars a top listing agent has. Okay. Again, if you're writing these down, number 1, the top thing, everything that you do in real estate, at least in terms of listing a home, is going to revolve around consulting and advising your client. You're going to take the guesswork out of real estate. Your job is to advise them through one of the top 5 most difficult things. Okay. Number 2, your job is to market and expose the property. The good news is you're with Century 21 Real Estate Alliance. Okay. We have over 40 offices, over 2,000 agents across California. There's no bigger Century 21 office than our office. And Century 21 is a name brand that has been recognized for over 40 years. So I'll ask the seller something to the effect of, where do you think most cash investors are coming? Foreign cash investors, what country do you believe they're coming from? And I'll hear an answer like China. Well, did you know that we have over 1,000 offices in China? When you list your home with Century 21, with myself and C21, you will get greater global exposure than if you list with any of the competitors out there, because we're on every single continent. And when you put your property on century21global.com, your home is going to be translated into 18 different languages, 4 different currencies. Okay. So these are, again, things that are showing the marketing and exposure. What do you want to do? Do you want to cast the biggest net out possible and expose your property to the biggest amount? And that gets into the commission story too. Do you want to just a 2% commission and only offer it to a few buyers when agents are struggling and are desperate and are not doing as many transactions as what they've done historically, and they got one client or one buyer that they've been working with and getting their butts kicked, especially recently in terms of writing offers, and you're only offering 2%, yet the competitor's offering 2.5% and 3%? Who do you think is going to work harder to try to sell your home? And that's the reality of the conversation. So while you're trying to save on an $800,000 listing $4,000, this is actually costing you tens, if not 50 plus $1,000, because the last home I listed at 2.5% commission, listed at 740, priced intelligently, and we're going to talk about that in just a second, priced well, procured 40 showings in 3 days, 20 offers. We ended up at 791, 51,000 over asking price. So it's not about what you list at, it's about what you end up at. And if we price intelligently, we will create and cast the biggest net and get the most exposure. So I need you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller. There's a few things as we talk about expectations. What are your expectations of myself? I'm going to share with you what my expectations of you of a seller and how we can work together as a team. Because as much as you're interviewing me, I'm also interviewing you as well to see if we can work well together, to see if you're truly motivated to sell your home. And if so, and you're committed with working with me and my proven systems, I'm committed to making sure that I negotiate, which is the third pillar, the strongest on your behalf, not just up front with the offers and vet the right buyer, because that's the challenge. We got 20 offers in. How do I decide who the best buyer is? And I have this chart over here on the side that we're going to talk about what we do to educate a seller of what your strongest offers are. And now if you're a contingent seller and you got a home to sell to purchase another property, what that actually means. And how do you become the strongest contingent buyer out there? Because we know, anybody who's been doing this for some time, that typically you want to go with somebody who only has to purchase your property versus having to sell a home to purchase a home. So that's the second half of the presentation. I know I got about another 10 minutes here to really jump into that, but I hope this is making sense. And I hope that your conversation already sounds something of this effect and you're using these tools. And if not, I want you to really think hard about how do you establish yourself as the market expert? How do you communicate with people when you're on social media? In conversations at a party, when somebody asks you, okay, how is the market right now? Oh, it's white hot. It's great. And I hope you're saying that, because now is always the best time to sell. And now is always the best time to buy. The key is, how good are you at understanding what the market is and the pros and the cons and the benefits to listing your home right now, and the pros and the cons and the benefits of why you want to purchase right now. And if you can understand what the advantages are, you can articulate those things very clearly and make sure that you move people to take action. And that's one of the very early things that, as I am speaking to a prospect or a client, I realize that they're at a point A, they are at a given point today. So I'll say, if you need to get pre-approved, you need to find out a financial snapshot of where you're at today. But they all have a step B. What's their point B? And how do we move them to that next step? And what do we have to identify? And why aren't they taking action to that second step? And if you don't understand what the next step is, it's going to be very hard for you to lead them to it. And when you understand this process, as I said, you're going to prospect, you're going to set the appointment, you're going to pre-qualify the day before you get to the appointment. After you get to the appointment, you're going to present. In the presentation, certain things are supposed to happen. You're going to discover, you're going to ask questions, you're going to repeat and affirm, you're going to connect with them. And there's 3 C's, and write this down. First, you have to connect with them. You have to create a rapport. You got to have a connection. They got to like you. And maybe even if they don't have to like you, they have to respect you and they have to trust you. You have to create an environment, a trusting environment. Okay. Second, you have to create value. You create value by asking intelligent questions that lead them to self-discovery of understanding that this is the best thing that they should be wanting to do. So intelligent questions will lead them down that path. Finally, you got to close. Once you understand how to close, once you've answered all the questions in their head and know what's going on in their head and what they're thinking. And the only way we know what they're thinking is by asking questions. Telling is repelling. Right now, I'm doing a lot of talking. I'm doing a lot of telling. Hopefully, I'm not repelling you, right? But I'm giving you information that I'm hoping that once you understand this process, you can literally, legitimately walk into any given situation and feel confident and have one of those two fundamental beliefs. Okay. And the two fundamental beliefs you have to have mindset wise, walking into any presentation. I say this with baseball and softball all the time. You either hope you're going to hit the ball or you know you're going to hit the ball. A huge difference. You either hope you're going to get the listing or you know you're going to get the listing. Two completely different mindsets. The only way I know I'm going to get the listing is if I fundamentally believe that I'm the best person for the job. I'm the number one agent, not the number 2, 3, 4, 57, 99th. I'm the number one agent for the job. Brand new agent, I'm the number one agent. Doesn't matter. There's reasons why you rather work with me as a brand new agent versus somebody who's been doing this for 20 plus years and really is getting all the calls and doesn't have to work that hard, right? I have to work hard. I want to prove myself. I want to earn your business and all your future referrals. Nobody will work harder than I will. I have the resources around me. I have the support around me. I have a great manager. I have compliance managers that will make sure that we're doing things right. I have a transaction coordinator team. I have all these people. I have an amazing escrow. I got an amazing loan officer partner. I only work with the best of the best. They will see based on their conversations that you are great at what you do and they can trust you. All right. So the second thing is you got to believe that you can get the job done. Those fundamental beliefs are critical. Remember these things before you go into your next listing presentation, before you prospect, before you pick up that phone and start reaching out to your sphere, that somebody out there needs your help. Somebody out there sincerely needs your help. And if you're not the one reaching out to them, somebody else is, they may not have the same motives or intentions that you have. And that's the key, is you know that sincerely you're trying to help people, and your sincerity of purpose will go a long ways and help you do more business and help people trust you and help people connect with you and allow you to lead them through the process. Okay. So jumping back into the process. So we talked about presenting. Well, in the presentation, there's some key things that are going to happen. And the things that I like to touch on is, number one is price and commission aren't talked about until phase 2. We have to create the value. We have to get them to choose us first over the competition. So you have to separate yourself from the competition. My big thing I already touched with you is the market. I'm going to talk about market stats after I discover and find out what's important to them. What are you looking for in the agent that you look to hire? They're going to share with me, well, I want somebody I can trust. I want somebody who knows this market, who can sell my home and get me top dollar and get my home sold. I don't want my home to sit on the market. Okay, great. Share with me what a good experience would look like for you. What would a bad experience, or how does a bad experience look like for you? Have you listed your home in your past? I want to take as much information I can. Tell me a little bit more about that and dig deep. Okay. After that, after I get to a pretty good point and I feel that there's trust, that they can tell I know what I'm doing, I've shared my what's called plan of action. I show what I do to get home sold. Then I'm going to get to a point where I'm going to talk about the market. And when I talk about the market, my goal is to overcome the objection that they're trying to put it off, in terms of they're not sure if they want to list with me right there, commit to that. They're not sure if they want to list today and go through the hassle of listing a home because it's a pain, right? So with those things, I need to be very good at my discovery and very thoughtful of how do I convince them that now is the best time to sell. So we talked about those market stats. I'll show them things, and I'm going to just get to it right now so that you can see it up here. So I'll show them these charts here. Just show them, okay, the peak of the market, there was about 140 listings last year around May, June, July, August, September. Okay. Right now, it's actually up to 160. Right now, we're down to about 80. And as I mentioned to you, 52 active just recently. I'm sorry, 51 active just yesterday. So we're at all-time lows in terms of numbers. But as you see, it picked back up in May, June, July, August, which is coming up. So that inventory is going to pick up just like it did last year. And you also see the gap here. between the new listings and the sold. The sold's way down here. Well, the solds have picked up, and look how much closer it is to the actives now. So you have a huge gap here last year. Now your solds are almost as close as your active, which means it's a good time to sell. But that gap could increase again. Your days on market and your absorption rate, and we'll talk on those things. So let me just finish and finishing, because I know I only got about another 5-10 minutes. This is a pretty complicated process, but it's important to understand. I just went over it with a new agent just the other day. So you got someone who's got a home to sell, and they're looking to purchase another property. And their excuse, which is a very valid excuse, I got a super low interest rate. There's no inventory on the market right now. Where am I going to move to? And the example, I have somebody who's selling in Ventura. I took their listing at $720,000. At their interest rate's 2.5%. And they got $50,000 in equity after what they'll walk away with from buying that 2 years ago. If they were to buy in Riverside to keep the same payment around $3,600 a month, they would only qualify for $525,000. So I discovered that information with the loan officer that had worked with them in the past. And so at this meeting on a Sunday, I call them up and say, okay, how do the numbers work out? Because I want to know what their comfort zone is. I want to know what payment they feel comfortable with. And I'm finding it out. So I got to get that answer. What are they going to net? $50,000. What is their payment? What do they feel comfortable with? Now, 2 key things I want you to remember is that people will be moved when you reduce the risk. And I've heard Jeff talk about this. They have fears and hesitations of moving forward. So we have to find a way to mitigate that risk and show them that they're going to be safe. Okay. That they're not going to be homeless, that we can protect them with an SPRP, which is a home of choice contingency, and make sure that's one route. Make sure that they're not going to be homeless, that they can list their home today, because they have to understand this process here of knowing the hierarchy of buyers. And as I said earlier, a contingent buyer is weaker in essence because there's more risk, more loose ends than a non-contingent buyer, a buyer who does not have to sell a home and can just purchase this property. So when 20 offers come in, your contingent offers are typically being thrown out. Now, there is a way to strengthen yourself as a contingent buyer. And this is what we want them to understand. So as we give them the hierarchy, and let's just start on the contingent buyers, there's different types of contingent buyers. And those types of contingent buyers are, first, what you're going to see most common, which is it's a seller who wants to find the home first. Who's had that? Wants to find the home first before they're going to list their home on the market. That's the lowest on the totem pole. Okay. And that's the last thing that you want to do, because there's too many unknowns. In a market with 20 offers, are you going to take that offer seriously? And the answer is no. Okay. The next one is going to be somebody who's listed their home and just hit the market, but they still don't have any buyers yet. And I guess worse than that is it's been on the market for 100 days and still no offers, which tells me it's overpriced. Okay. So that's probably the next worst. The next going up is getting that home in escrow. So now you have it and you have offers and you're actually in escrow. And there's a way that you're going to fill out the COP form. So that puts them up another level higher. Now, to make that one even stronger, they got to get to the point where all contingencies are removed. Now it's getting much more tightened up and locked up. So if I have a contingent, buyer now, but their home is already listed, it's in escrow, we've already had all the contingencies removed, they're locked in, and I have 2 backup offers, and they're flexible and they can close ASAP, that's going to be a very strong contingent buyer. So our job is to educate the sellers so that they understand that in order to get this ball rolling, just like you wouldn't take a buyer unless they've been pre-approved, you got to get your home on the market. And I can promise you that you're not going to be homeless, because we're going to protect you with the contract and show you what's called either home of choice contingency, because there's actually one buyer who's even stronger than this contingent buyer. And I've already hinted to it. Somebody who's already closed with that buyer on the sale of their home, and they've either done a rent back or figured out another temporary living situation like an Airbnb until they find that right home. Now, that's a bigger risk. Most people aren't willing to do it. But as I talked about, you have to figure out how to mitigate that risk. How do you take the pressure off for them committing? And when they know that you know the contract well and that you will protect them and you will guarantee that you will make sure that they're not homeless, but we got to get this ball rolling. We got to list their home, get it in escrow, get these contingencies removed, be as strong as possible. Now you can sell it when you're writing an offer on another property, even if there's competition, say, look, this isn't like your typical contingent offer. After we sell this home, we're going to have $300,000 to put towards it. We are able now to waive our appraisal. We're able to take it as an as-is sale, and we're ready to close in about 10 days. We just need to find the right home, and your home looks like the perfect home. So now you aren't your typical contingent offer. And as you're looking at and competing against somebody who's only got 5% down, going FHA, VA, or something that could have more risk, now you are a much stronger seller buyer, right? Next stronger buyer, and could get that job done. So just in kind of summary, and I know I've just hit the 30-minute mark right now. Really understanding the process, understanding the market, understanding the contract, understanding how to speak with people and connect with them, ask questions, is going to lead you to the process of being able to take more listings. You got to believe in yourself. You have to practice this. You got to know where to get the information. I hope this training's been helpful in giving you some different things and approaches of how to do it. There's one last thing I wanted to share before we wrap up. And that final point, and it was actually brought up, so I got to give credit where it's due. It was brought up from a loan officer. And what he had shared with me is, don't make the $100,000 mistake right now. And what he's referring to is a buyer who purchases in this market. So if you have a seller, it's called separating the issues. I learned this in mediation. When you have two major issues that are tied together, you want to separate the issues, because tied together, selling and buying a home, it may be impossible to be able to pull both of them off. To sell and make sure you get max dollars, to purchase and get the perfect home at the best price in this competitive market. Because we know that, yes, they're going to do well on the sales side, but how are they going to do on the purchase side? And what we have to help do is change perspective, and change the perspective sometimes, even though this may be one less commission for you, in separating the issues. So if you can help that seller understand, or maybe even think that renting for the next year may be the route to go, to see what happens with the market and the interest rates, cash out and make as much as you can right now. And then even look at, okay, you take a 1-year lease, find out what the cancellation of that lease is. And my seller who's selling on Lawnwood, who's purchasing in Colorado right now, to break his lease is a month and a half deposit, whatever a month and a half rent is. It's less than $4,000. So to break his 1-year lease is going to cost him $4K. Now, if he finds the right home while he's in that lease and he has his housing situation taken care of, he's good for $4K. And he just netted and made at least an extra definitely $40,000 more than what he was hoping to make. Okay. So he walked away with an extra 40. He's got his place that he's going to rent and get to know the area. And after getting to know the area and seeing what happens in the marketplace, hopefully he's able to take advantage of the market and get a great buy and do what he needs to do. So I hope that's just a different way of looking at it. And we help change perspectives and beliefs by asking good, intelligent questions that help lead them to that process. So thank you for your time. I hope that was of help. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and I look forward to speaking with you all in the future. Take care. Bye.